Could a Club Rugby World Cup work? That is the question on our mind. Hughesy, the Crusaders have just gone overseas. They've done a pre-season tour playing Munster and Bristol Bears. The Chiefs and the Blues have headed over to Japan, played a couple of teams over there, have seen really good results with crowd numbers, and I think the results themselves have been really good. The Crusaders, first of all, played Munster in front of 40,000 fans in Ireland, which is huge, a massive game. Again, we struggle to get 40,000 for a Super Rugby game, even maybe a Super Rugby final. So that's a massive attendance for a pre-season game with not the full names on show. Then you've got them playing Bristol just this weekend gone. And again, Munster beating the Crusaders as well. And this is during a Six Nations period where they're missing their players as well. Then you've got Bristol hosting the Crusaders. Again, Six Nations period, English players missing. Also an English game on, but 18,000 turned out and a capacity of 27,000 in the stadium. So there is definitely some attraction to cross-code. Same with the Japanese. I think the teams and the games were very successful over there. I don't quite know what the crowd numbers were in those games, but it's all looking really good for club rugby as a whole.
Well, the Rebels also toured Japan in 2023, in sort of the international period. So again, wasn't a full force Melbourne Rebels team, but positively received as well from everything that I've seen. I think it is a really great initiative. I think it is a good way to spread fandom of Super Rugby. If you can get Japanese media money involved in Super Rugby, that's all to the better. So I think that's you need to get more money flowing into Super Rugby, and I think you need to get fans interested in Super Rugby again, or more interested in Super Rugby, and you've got to find ways to generate that interest, in these sort of international clashes are great ways to get people interested.
It feels like the golden ticket to me is, okay, first of all, what rugby needs to do is sort out its rugby calendar and go, this is what we're going to do, because there's an opportunity for it. But in a Champions League like Asia Pacific Rugby, Super Rugby against the Japanese top team as a European Champions Cup type tournament, I think is the next step for Super Rugby and Global Rugby to be doing that in those midweek games and stuff like that, having that set up. Then I think we can start to discuss a Club Rugby World Cup, a Club World Cup. I don't know how it works. I don't know the feasibility. I know it's been discussed before, but I think from the results that I've seen of just these two games, I think if a Munster team travelled here, I think more people would go out. It's those, those one-off affairs, those, those moments. It's the same like if you brought a South African Super Rugby team to tour New Zealand now, I think it would pop off just because people want to go and see those games that they haven't seen for 4 years. Again, Super Rugby is that constant product, and you get it it's like a English Premier League game. Again, they sell out a lot more, but again, you'll have empty seats every so often. And then if you're in an FA Cup quarter final, or if it's a Champions League game with a big team coming in, all of a sudden people are there. If you've got a Cristiano Ronaldo coming, there's all of a sudden people are in the stands and are interested. So I think there's definitely potential for it, and I see rugby moving in this direction.
You need to give fans an opportunity to attend games where their team are playing in games with weight and importance, like something different from just a regular season game, So say like an FA Cup or like a Champions Cup style thing, say you had a group stage, your team would host a game there that is of importance. They need to win that game to advance to the next stage type thing. So I think, the fans will show up more for games of importance than just a regular season game. We went to the Brumbies and Waratahs opening game last year because it was hyped up a lot by Eddie Jones. Like they put a lot of importance into that game of, we want to really get great numbers down here to the new opening stadium, new season, new Wallabies coach, yada, yada, yada. They really talked up and made it an important game. And it was a cracking game as well. So you just need to add weight to it. It can't just be expecting fans to just show up to just another game.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like the weight here didn't come from the importance of the game. It's a preseason fixture with not big stars. The weight came from the fact that these two teams haven't played ever before or haven't played for a very long time. It's something different. It's a sprinkle of that. Like, again, I think this would happen. I just think the rugby calendar's got to be fixed. That's the big thing in my mind.
and I think as well, I think this would probably lend some weight to one of our proposed fixes for Super Rugby, which is to divide it into Australian and New Zealand conferences specifically for during the regular season, and then your postseason is where you get those then cross Tasman matchups, and then you could even have maybe during the season, you have a tournament that runs that there is those cross Tasman games. So, you are more likely than like in New Zealand rugby. You said before, not many people really go out when it's a New Zealand team versus Australia team, right? But it's a relatively common affair. If you make those rarer, people will go to them more because they are, rarer. You're less likely to see it. It's less available. You're restricting the supply, and it's thus inflating the demand.
Totally, and that's a big thing for me is looking at it like I've got, as a Hurricanes fan now, a game circled on my calendar, and that's the Brumbies game. And that's purely come from the finals matchups that we've had. It hasn't come from, even our regular seasons ones have been good, but it's been the past few years we've seemed to match each other in the finals every so often. And I just think, like what we pitched is, hey, you have your conference games where you play everyone twice in your conference. That's 8 games there. You have 2 Super Rugby rounds, one in Australia, one in New Zealand, where you play off, and then you can have a final series from there. Again, it's a shortened season and TV monies and stuff like that. But again, if you can do it like that, or even if you make it a 14-week season or something like that, again, I look back and I go, Super 12 was you just played everyone once. It's an 11-week season. So, if you play everyone twice here, that's 8 games, and you have those 2 Super rounds, that's 10 weeks. Maybe you chuck in 1 extra week of a international crossover game where you host or they host. On the calendar, you get to 12 games in a round or 11 games in a round in a season, and then you go finals. It makes a lot more sense to me, and it's bang and done. But again, we're not the head honchos, unfortunately. But maybe
what
we
you can't do is what they can't do is keep going down the same path they've been going down, because it's not working. That's why the Melbourne Rebels are in administration. It's why other Super Rugby teams are in financial difficulties. It's not working. Something needs to change, and it's better to have something different than to cull teams. It's better to try something else.
I totally agree, and I look at it and I go, the NPC, which is our provincial competition for rugby below Super Rugby, the Wellington Lions have just moved their home from Westpac Stadium out to North or Jerry Collins Stadium because they just aren't getting the attendance and their cost to host a game at Westpac Stadium for only 1,000 odd people when it's a 30,000 seat. It doesn't make any sense, and that's. Again, it's a big change because history is there, but it's one of those ones that's a necessary change. Like, we need to understand what is, and this is what I would love to know, and I would hope that Super Rugby have this information. What's our target audience? What's our target market? What are the people we're going after? And then from there, how do we work on growing that? And again, I think the growth comes from an Asian Pacific competition, which is, again, during that competition, I think you put in a midweek, and again, it might not have the same importance, but it's that even if it's not as important on your schedule, like you're not like, oh man, we want to win this game. You're seeing something new. It's a different thing every year. If you've made it, if you've qualified for it, and I just like that idea, and then that can build to a Club World Cup. But if World Rugby can sort out their calendar, I think that would be the start, and then you could easily build off that. But I think we've also got too many old heads in there, and they'll just chuck a Club Rugby World Cup somewhere in the middle of the season and say, teams now have to fit this in as well. And it'll make the money, it'll probably work quite well, but I don't think for the longevity of our sport, it's the right move.
100%.
What are your thoughts on a Club Rugby World Cup? What are your thoughts on, an Asia Pacific? What are your thoughts on growing Super Rugby, as we've discussed on this one? For now, I've been Luke from That Rugby Podcast. That has been Husey. We are the Sports Booth. We will catch you next time. See you later.
Peace.